Okay, good evening, everybody. Dave De Beer, yes. Chris, Johan, LCA, even Maret, thank you very much for this opportunity. Any of these talks are always a little bit nervy at the beginning, but give me a couple of minutes and I'll really be in the swing of things. Just a little bit about myself. I arrived in Hermanus in 2004, and I was immediately sort of taken by these southern right whales. I won't lie to you, I was actually sitting in a pub having a cold beer, and I looked down over the old harbour, and there were two whales. And I think there were about 3 or 4 guys with their back turned to the sea, having a beer and a chat. And I sort of nonchalantly walked up to them and said, "Listen, guys, don't you want to turn around and have a look at the spectacle in front of you?" And they just sort of ignored me. And one guy piped up and he said, "Listen, why don't you come back tomorrow? There'll probably be 4 whales." And that's how the journey got going with the southern right whales. It was the beginning of June, so it was the start of the whale season. And pretty much from that very day, I have been photographing with my film camera, and I immediately went into digital in 2005, and I pretty much haven't stopped. I've been very fortunate to author a book in 2009 called Hermanus Whales, and then I thought that was it, got the t-shirt, let's move on. But how things have changed, and that was pretty much just the platform that was laid down. And by 2014, I had authored my second book called Hermanus Whales, The Journey Continues. And that was probably the most difficult part of the whole book, was actually naming the book. And it was just a continuation, a sequel. And I pretty much think we're going to be onto a third book sooner than later. COVID has given me a lot of time to photograph and go through all my photographs. I've pretty much amassed about 1 million photographs of these, as Johan aptly said earlier, the gentle giants of the ocean. And through my showcasing this, my photographs actually will tell the story. I've put the photographs into a lovely sequence. I'm also going to be telling people, I'm sure there are a lot of people out there that know about whales, but just don't know the intricate parts about them. So I'll be giving you a little rundown on specifically the southern right whale. However, there's a certain section in the talk where while you're out there photographing southern right whales, you get whales from different species of whales. You get dolphins, and it just sort of lends itself to just being out in nature. Being South African, I grew up in Johannesburg, and probably through my folks visited to the Kruger National Park over the years from 3 months of age. I've probably done over 100 trips to the Kruger, done the Kalahari, done Addo, done the Northern Natals. And by 2004, I actually still didn't know anything about whales. So I actually basically kick my butt and say, how embarrassing, you're a South African, you know nothing about the whales. So pretty much tonight's talk is going to showcase the whales, and hopefully everybody else out there, this will also just sort of add to it. There are lots of Facebook pages out there on wildlife, on birds, but very few on the actual the sea creatures. And I just think tonight's talk will sort of enhance that and showcase it as well. So yes, I'm going to be talking solidly for 40 minutes, maybe a little bit longer, 45. But yes, the story will follow a nice little sequence. So folks, bear with me, sit back and enjoy the talk. And then hopefully after the talk, we can have quite a few questions and answers. Okay, so I'm going to sort of start off. This is me sitting on the rocks. I'm not a lion supporter by any means, my red and white top there. But this is pretty much me hiding away on the rocks, really pushing the high water marks. I've been splashed many a time, lost many lenses. And I had to change shoes and shorts, and really had to watch my back with these ferocious seas, especially in the winter months. Okay, so initially we're going to just show you the landscape. Walker Bay is where it all happens, in the town of Hermanus. Those that don't know where Hermanus is, it's pretty much the southern tip of Africa. It's about 110, 120 kilometers east of Cape Town, and it is just nestled sort of under the beautiful Plain River mountain range. And what a beautiful spectacle this is. You can see here with the photographs, this is standing up on the mountain looking down on the bay now. And pretty much what makes Hermanus such a spectacle for the whales is just looking at this photograph, you can actually see the the beach area that joins Hermanus on the left and all the way to the right, just out of picture, is Gansbaai. And that is all part of Walker Bay Nature Reserve. And that is where the majority of the whales, especially the calving moms, lie in the real shallows. And then right in front of town, we have these beautiful cliffs, about 10, 15, even 20 meters above the water surface. And immediately where the cliffs meet the sea, we have a depth of about 8 to 12 meters. And this is what allows the whales to come right up, and I'd say right up to the edge of the rocks, making it, from a tourist perspective, I would say one of the showpieces on this planet. Once again, this is what I'm going to be showcasing, is this beautiful Hermanus. And those that have never been here, I urge you, please come down here and see these gentle giants. Taken from the ocean now. As you can see now, I'm looking straight into the mountain. That's where I took the photographs, looking the other way. So let's give you a bit of perspective. It's also taken from a boat. Tourists flocking there. This is right in front of town at the old harbor, literally within touching distance. You can actually just jump onto the whales. The whales are very, very inquisitive creatures. They are very relaxed. And out of all the whale species, I reckon these are probably the easiest whales to view. And the main reason for that is because they spend 6 months of the year with us, not feeding. They come from their feeding grounds in the Antarctic waters, and then they move into Walker Bay. Now, Walker Bay itself is about 400 square kilometers, give or take, size-wise. It just lends itself to the whales, as I said, southern tip of Africa, and then also water temperature and probably water depth, and also just a lovely bay for them to frolic in. So they come here to have their calves, they come here to mate, a gestation period of 12 months, and pretty much a 6-month vacation. So pretty much my next life, I'm coming to this planet as a southern right whale. I have been blessed through my times. I've basically reinvented myself. I do guide on the boats, but my real love is to take people along the coastline, along the beautiful coastal path. We have a coastal path that stretches for about 10, 11, maybe even 12 kilometers. And as I said, this is a typical tour that I'm on, both young and old. There we are, just sitting. You can see the whale just down to the right there. I mean, this is it. The whales just languish there. So it's not chasing anything. And because the whales aren't chasing food, they are pretty much lying, just relaxing. So you park off on the rocks. I would stand behind them and just give them all the information, just like I'm giving you folks now. So that's what I would do. And as I say, it's from land is as spectacular as going out to sea. And you'll see a little bit later as well. I've even taken a few shots from above before drones really became quite a thing. We are blessed with these massive, massive seas. Here at Walker Bay, we can have anything up to 12, 13, even 14 meter face waves. We have monster seas here during the months of July and August. And of course, then all these nutcrackers, the big surfers that don't know any better, come and surf these massive waves. And there we have a young, so it's probably about a 2-3-year-old southern right whale that joined in the fray, and he wanted to perform and play with the surfers. Absolutely incredible watching them. They just have that sort of very innate playful streak in them. Our good friend old Herman de Vries, he owns the kayak business, and this is always his fear of these gentle giants coming to say hello in a nice sort of relaxed manner. But as you can see, a 65,000 kilogram southern right whale can cause quite a lot of damage. However, it's unknown to me that there's ever been an injury. I have in my first book actually got a photograph of a whale being lifting a kayak completely out the water, balancing it on its back, and then gradually or gently just putting it back down. Nobody fell out. As if to say, very sorry, I didn't see you, but you carry on with your kayak. Okay, so now you know pretty much the ins and outs of Hermanus. Now the story will continue. So just to get to know now what the whale looks like, as I said, these are gentle giants, size-wise, anything from about 13 to 15 meters, probably 16, 17, the really big ones, but generally between the 13, 15 meter mark, and can weigh anything from 50 to as much as 60, 65,000 kilograms. And I like to always work on my figures. The heaviest ever recorded, 96,000 kilograms. So these are massive, massive animals. Very friendly face, lovely smiley face. Just to give you an idea now, we're looking straight at the whale coming towards me, and the top jaw with all the callosities on it, I'll go through the callosities later, is called the rostrum. And the big jaw, the bottom jaw, sort of the cheeks sort of close it in. close in on the rostrum. Taken from land, I mean, I'm virtually sitting in the water and head on this whale lying in the kelp beds, no more than probably 30 meters from me, and just languishing there. There are mothers and calves. Now note this is a brindled whale. I like to call them Dalmatians, but we'll stick to the correct name. It is a brindle whale. About 3 to 4% of all whales born come out snow white with these black markings on them. And they are, of those 3% born, about 95% are male. So you can almost comfortably say that that is a young male. There's a nice close-up of it. Now, believe it or not, also taken from land. I will mention land as opposed to boat. Even though we get very close with the boat, we also get, or I get very close from land. Now, once again, another young brindle. Now, if you look at those protrusions on the front, those are called callosities. Now, callosities is just a skin protrusion. It's almost like a skin eruption. And then that forms the basis for all the parasites to attach themselves to the whales. Now, these callosity patterns are their identification. So just like humans have fingerprints, southern right whales all have their own unique callosity patterns. And when the male or the Whale Research Institute, the Whale Unit, Mammal Research Institute, the Whale Unit, they will do an aerial survey, and that's how they photograph, put it into the database, and that's how they recognize whales from years. I think it's been going on for about 42 years now. Just speaking of that, I just got figures here in front of me. We did a flyby on Tuesday, thanks to Jean Tresfon, and he flew from Witstrand all the way back to Hermanus and to Horston, and we had a count of 427 whales. It was a little bit overcast, so I'm sure there's a bit of room for, or margin for error there. So let's work on 500 southern right whales, which is about average. It is a little bit lower than the peaks, but it's on an average. So yeah, it's all boding well for the season. Another little straight on, that's funny enough taken off a boat. And then also off a boat, now you can see the callosity patterns. These are 2 adults. This is probably the start of a mating group. And yeah, the white coloration you see there, those are whale lice, also known as cymids. And it's a symbiotic relationship that they share with the whale. And their job is just to make sure that the whale is kept spick and span, pretty much groom it, make sure all the dead skin is eaten away. A nice close-up, one of the few rare shots of an eye. They really roll around, and to capture an eye of this quality is very, very unique. And now above the eye, that is called the callosity brow, just like humans have an eyebrow. That is the eyebrow of the southern right whale. You can also see the different coloration here. This is an adult brindle. Now those white little whales, the brindles that are born snow white, they will actually gray with age. So you can see now that gray area there was actually white when it was a youngster. Okay, moving on to more the mouth area, the anatomy of the mouth. Whales have massive cavernous mouths. A average sort of 14, 15 meter whale, let's work on 15 meters. The mouth area would be about 30%, almost a third of the full length of the whale. Now, housed in that huge mouth, that is now the rostrum I showed you earlier. That is the top jaw, with the bottom jaw, which is like a big back actor. And that is sort of home to these beautiful, it almost looks like a harp. These are the baleen plates of the whale. Now, they have about 500 of these in their mouth. It hangs from the top jaw, and they can reach a length of anything from 2.2 to about 2.4 meters on average. I had one of the marine biologists, they had one at the museum that measured 2.7 meters. I mean, that is just a massive, massive mouth. Once again, a nice close-up. This is the rostrum, the top jaw, and you can just see on the right, on the left-hand side there, the fine little lines of these massive baleen plates. Okay, this is a youngster, probably about 2.5, maybe 3 months of age. You can see the roof of the mouth, and you can see how the cheeks of the bottom jaw sort of come around, and that's sort of home to the baleen plates. Now, of course, they are filter feeders, and they will use these baleen plates as a filtration system. And in doing so, just like humans, they can't consume salt water, so they've got to get rid of the salt water. In doing so, they use that as a filtration system plankton will attach itself to the inside of the fine fibers on the mouth. I think I've got a photograph here. That's of an adult now. You can see the fibers on the inside. It's almost like a big sieve, whatever you want to call it. Yeah, so nothing escapes that except the water. The water will escape through that. Once the mouth is closed, the massive tongue will then swallow down all the food. Now, remember I said they do not feed for 6 months of the year. So pretty much when they are feeding, they can consume huge amounts of krill, plankton, copids, euphausids, all your little microorganisms, and anything up to 1,500 kilograms of food per day. We're going on now to the blowholes. Just like humans, they breathe air. Now their blowholes would measure anything, I'd say about 30, 35 centimeters in length and about 10 centimeters wide when they are fully open. They will exhale. They are renowned for their beautiful V-shaped blow. And I think I've got 2 pictures coming up here. Yeah, shot straight into the early morning sun on the other side of the bay. Yeah, that is just the warm air from the lungs hitting the cold outside air and vaporizing. There will probably be a few water particles as it comes up to the surface to take its breath. So of course, at a high speed, that exhale comes out, and of course it would vaporize. Nice one there. It's sort of a little bit cloudy as well. I think I must have underexposed quite a lot here as well. But yeah, that typical V-blow. And on a good calm day, I mean, you can see a southern right whale even with the naked eye from about 3-4 kilometers away. Okay, I've gone straight into the mating now. As I said, their gestation period is 12 months. So they have their babies here in our bay, and they also mate in our bay. So very blessed to have probably some of the only photographs. I think I'm the only person to have photographs taken from land. I know I've got Ken Whaleman Moore listening as well. He has also got some spectacular shots of mating from the boat. And these are the most well-endowed creatures on the planet. And even the blue whale doesn't even come close to a southern right whale. They have a penis length of about 3 meters, and their testicle weight combined is about 1,000 kilograms. So their mating rituals is all about sperm competition. The male with the most vigorous semen will ultimately be the one that impregnates the female. And in so doing, what happens during the mating rituals, anything from 3, 4, as many as 8 males will take a receptive female aside, and then repeatedly they would mate with her. And then ultimately the male with the most vigorous semen will impregnate her. Now, just if you look at terrestrial animals, and most of your terrestrial animals, big or small, you always have the alpha male, and pretty much the alpha male, he's in charge. He has his bevy of beauties or his harem of beauties. And southern right whales have pretty much worked at the exact opposite. There's no aggression shown amongst southern right whales. It's pretty much all first come, first serve. I'll say it to the tongue in cheek. And then if you want seconds, you just join the back of the queue. It's a pretty disorderly mating ritual. You can imagine 5 or 6 or even 10 60,000 kilogram southern right whales vying for one female. It can be quite a sight. There's probably one of my best shots, actually penetrating the female there. Just incredible to see that this is right in front of my eyes. I mean, I'm from land here. It's just amazing to see the sight. Okay, so moving on from the mating, we go straight into a year later when the calves, moms will drop their calves. It's done over a period of about 3 months, pretty much July, August, September. We'll have a few early births in June and a few later births in October, but that's more rare. So what happens is the calf will be dropped, and I'm showing you these pictures now. This is a mother that was going to give birth, and she actually gave birth in the bay. And a very interesting story. I actually spent close on 30 consecutive days with this mother and calf. It's never ever happened to me again. I mean, the most I've ever seen a mother and calf in sort of about 2-3 days. You know, they move around the bay, but she must have dropped this calf in this particular spot in the bay. And every day I went down, and literally for 30 days. And I managed to photograph her for the whole season until she left. And I must admit, she was a lot more slender. Mamas can lose about 35, 40, even as much as 45% of their body mass. And when she left at the end of November, she had done her job and left with a very, very strong, healthy calf. Now, just look at the calf on the right-hand side there. This is mom sticking its head out, encouraging the little one to breach. Now, they encourage their babies to breach. And the reason for that is the tail of the southern right whale does not have any bone structure. So it comes out like a flappy paddle. And pretty much she has to immediately get that calf to start using and exercising that tail. So in so doing, it's also to work out the coordination of the little one, to see that she's dealing with a very sound youngster. And of course, that tail has to become rigid. And by breaching and lobtailing, you'll get a few shots later on lobtailing. That is how she encourages the little one. Because come the end of the season, which is end of November, you pretty much got a southern right whale calf that is 3.5 to 4 months of age. And that little 1,000-kilogram calf that was born about 5 to 6 meters of length, that calf would probably put on about 2.5 to 3 meters in length and probably about 7,000 kilograms in weight. I mean, it is incredibly how quick they grow. And the reason they grow so quickly is because the milk that mother produces is of a very high fat content. To give you an example, human mother's milk, about 3 to 4% fat content. Southern right whales, anything from 35 to 40, probably even as much as 45% fat content. So it is almost like this big pasty toothpaste that comes out, very, very high in fat concentrate, and the little one will just love processing this. Okay, another photograph just to show you that she found this little bay in the bay, and little calf on the left-hand side there. And this mommy were actually named Patches. Little calf was named Patch. He had a little white patch on his belly. It's not uncommon to see white markings on the underside. About 80 to 85% of southern right whales have these markings. But from my photographic years that I've been out there for the last 18 years, I've probably got about, I reckon, 180, 200, maybe 220 whales that I've recognized over that time frame. Very incredible, and it also helps for research. And this is another close-up taken from the rocks. I think I actually got pretty wet this breaching sequence. Mommy, look, we had that contact. Yeah, a lot of people say, yeah, you always get that eye contact. And I'm telling you, through the water over that period of a month, this mother and calf got to know me pretty well. Just sort of finishing off now with Patches and Patch, a big stormy day. These were also these big 10-meter swells, and that whale exhaling there pretty much dwarfed by these huge waves. Okay, we'll now move on to another chapter. After these big stormy seas, we get the kelp, the huge kelp beds all the way down the cliffs. And then they break off with the big waves, and they just find a lot of freedom. They go and play with them and use them sort of as almost like a massaging tool, sort of like a scourer. They have a bit of playful moments with them, just putting a big kelp clump on its blowhole and then blowing it up. Carried on doing this for about 10 or 12 blows. And just trying to look like Father Christmas. And then this is now typical where they take all these, I mean, that's thicker than a man's arm, that single strand of kelp, and then they just gently glide it over the back. And it's just a repeated process, and it must be just a lovely feeling. And I do believe they are very sensitive to the touch. And once again, just using the pectoral flipper. And then, so yeah, I'm moving on now. Yeah, so being a photographer, it's not just arriving and taking photographs of a breaching whale or a lobtailing whale. You try and work, I'm getting a little more on the technical side now. You want to try and create sort of angles, and you want to create a bit of a story. It's purposely all cut off there. I haven't cropped it at all, but this tells you that it is something, and it's something that is spectacular. It's really revved up the water, but you actually don't know what it is, but that's where the artist can give you the whole story. So this is just a brindle whale with a pectoral flipper splashing up and down. Also, this is taken from a boat, also a brindle, and just hasn't broken the surface, but it was a lovely dark blue day, and it's just coming up. It's literally, I would say, probably 5 centimeters before it breaks the surface. And of course, as you know, once it breaks the surface, it just becomes a complete waste, because you've got all the dark and then the white water. Lovely tummy close up. I mean, they just have some of these most amazing patterns and designs. Now, moving on to the boat, I do guide on the boat as well. I have probably amassed I think I'm just on 1,000 trips now over the last 5 years. I've also spent about 10 years on the boat as a photographer, just catching a free ride. So yeah, 1,000 trips. I've managed, as I said, some phenomenal shots from the boat as well. I know Ken is listening. Ken, I know, has got about 8,000. I could be wrong. Yeah, this is just to give you an idea of the closeness. And this all sort of tells you their inquisitive behavior, their showmanship, their playfulness. They just, we've got a special license where we're government regulated. We're allowed to go within 50 meters. But as I say to everybody, 9 times out of 10, and most of the time, the whales never read the rule book, and they like to come and breach that 50-meter mark and like to come right up to the side of the boat. And now this one almost breaching on top of the boat. Yeah, this is the money shot. This is the boat I work on, and the boat that Ken worked on as well for 10 years. And yeah, this I actually took from land. This is just a whale that breached about 7 or 8 times. They were actually sitting watching another pod of whales or a herd of whales, and this whale just gradually breached all the way to the side of the boat. And this was the big exhale at the end of the breaching, as if to say, listen, guys, what about this show? And you can just see happy clients and whale just saying, yeah, just take the last photo there. And once again, this is the closeness. This is the back of the boat that I work on. And if you can see clearly, there are 3 southern right whales in this picture. So the line astern there. And yeah, how much closer can you get? We have 3 whale operators in the Manus. Sadly, due to COVID now, only one is still functioning or operating. But this is the type of experiences that you can get. This is like, I would say, the hole-in-one of whaling. This is what everybody pays their money to, and everybody asks you the question, when are the whales going to breach? So I hope you bring a pack of peanuts, because this is nature. These are wild animals. They do it when they want to, not when you want to. Now this is a bit of aerial photography. When I put my second book, this was before drones even were really so commonplace. So I hired a Cessna on quite a few occasions and went out. And funny enough, even Cessnas or little planes have to adhere to the 300 meter. That is by international standards, 300 meters away or above the whales. I've been blessed as well. I spent a lot of time with the guy sitting in the back there. He's a Swedish photographer, world-renowned, Jan Pedersen, both terrestrial and sea life. I mean, he's a phenomenal photographer. And yeah, through my adventures, I mean, he's become a very good friend of mine, very good colleague. And this is part of the scene. You're dealing with people that want to see how you do things. And yeah, I've met some phenomenal people. I mean, I just see tonight's panel as well, not even the panel, people listening, some really remarkable people. Yeah, so a couple of aerial flights, just to show you, we do a couple of low flybys. And then from above, I waited, I'm not lying, I waited a good 8-9 years for this particular day, a windless day and absolutely pristine water conditions. I mean, you can see the shadow to the right of that whale. This is probably no more than 3.5 to 4 meters of water. And she's probably just scraping her belly on the sea bottom. And this is where they feel the most comfortable. It is between the sort of 3 to 10 meter mark. That is where they operate. And they always operate around the perimeter of the bay. You hardly ever find them right in the middle of the bay. It will be more the mating groups that you'll find in the middle of the bay. But generally, moms and calves just use that little go-to zone, the 3 to 10 meters. You can see that the sea bottom being agitated there. There again. I mean, it just must get a lovely body scrub here. Those that don't know, those that do know, De Hoop Nature Reserve is actually the main calving ground. That's about another 100 kilometers further east up the coastline. And also love the shallow water there. It's a very sandy bottom there. And yeah, pretty much this is what you would find if you had a drone or went over in a helicopter or an airplane. And yeah, just blessed. I mean, if I look at this, probably no more than I wouldn't even say a couple of days, probably yes, a couple of days, 2-3 days max, taking a little hike on Mom's back. Southern right whales are yeah, just such beautiful little creatures. I mean, after, if you go back to 1880, 1900, they were pretty much decimated. The population was less than 500, which was put it on the brink of extinction. They had a very rocky road from the 1900s. 1935, there was an international ban. Then the Second World War gave them a bit of a reprieve. Then the Whaling Commission was formed in, I think, 46 or 48. And then I think pen was put to paper. However, then the Russians of the Second World War, I think they plundered, I think, between 2,000 and 3,000. I'm using these numbers I got from the late Dr. Peter Best. And it was a rocky recovery. And by 1980, the population of the southern right whale was probably lower than 2,000, probably even closer to 1,500. And then from then, it's just been a remarkable recovery. Because most of whaling has stopped in South Africa. I mean, South Africa was a huge whaling nation for basically an uninterrupted period of about 184 years. And by 1975, the whole industry had pretty much fallen to its knees. It was economically unviable to hunt because there were no whales to hunt. And by 1980, the southern right whale at about, let's give it 1,500, they then managed to get to probably 20,000 today. Give or take, probably between 18 and 22,000. So a remarkable recovery. It just shows you if things are managed correctly and man pulls together. I mean, we always think of the bad side of things, but there's a lot of good doers out there. So yeah, I mean, I always say the young kids are my angle of attack. Those are the future marine biologists, and that's where you want to plant the seed. And ultimately, I also want my grandkids to see these southern right whales frolicking in the bay. Yeah, so this just gives you an idea of the sheer volume, the size. I mean, this is a massive animal making one massive. I mean, it's just a big explosion, and the sound that goes with it is just it's sort of deafening. Now, funny enough, the photographer I had in the plane with me, he then joined me on the boat, and he's also got this photograph. Not as good as mine, though. But as you can see, just a lovely sort of landscape there with the mountains. That is Hoy's copy. And then the beautiful white building there is the Marine Hotel, which has been around for, I think, for about 130 years already. So yeah, this is all on our doorstep, and this is how it all takes shape. Okay, we're going to be moving on now onto the breaching. Now, look, I've seen and I've heard lions, I've heard the fish eagles. It's a breaching southern right whale. There is, as far as I'm concerned, there is nothing that comes close to it. When you are within earshot, I'm talking 50 meters to even 100 meters, it is just breathtaking. I'm going to show you a good couple of breaches here. Here you can also see the underside. I mean, it's just unique markings. There's a little brindle. You see those two little wingmen there, the two heart-lipped gulls. Now, that is very common. As soon as the whales start breaching, you always get the kelp gulls and the heart-lipped gulls around. So normally what happens is you will get the callosities, that whale lice that sits on the callosities. When they breach, of course, it is very ferocious. And of course, a lot of these whale lice will get knocked off. And they are little high protein specimens. So this is an easy feed for the birds. Back on the boat again. This is a youngster, and well, I can't tell you. I think I probably got 100 mil lens here. This is so close. I probably got wet here as well. Okay, now I'm just going to go this photo and the next one. Now, this is just for interest's sake. This has got a capsule of water around it. It's coming out at such a ferocious speed that it's basically taken this balloon of water, almost a meniscus of water around it, and then it only breaks. So just to show you the ferocity of that, it'll just bring this bubble of water with it, and then the water breaks off it. Once again, it's just years and years of experience knowing where you've got to aim and sort of the quickness of the draw. So you've got to look over your camera and then basically start shooting before the eye's even looking through the viewfinder. Also taken from land, very close to the rocks here. Well, very close to the rocks, me and the whale. Yeah, they just come so close. Yeah, I think I got wet this day as well. Big, powerful breaches. And this is all about the growing up, the strengthening of those pectoral flippers, the tail, And it's just sheer exuberance. As I said to you, I don't think there is a malicious bone in the body of a southern right whale. They are such gentle giants. Okay, one of the earliest shots, I think this was probably taken in 2006, 2007. But once again, just you see the whale breaching. I mean, that in itself, capturing that is one for the books, but then working the birds coming past as well. So nice little lines I've got there. So yeah, I think I can give myself a pat on the back for that. Yeah, lovely. Look at the colors. You're looking at the clouds. You're looking at the mountain in the background, the white beach, and yeah, quite I wouldn't say it was a calm day, but probably the westerly just on its way to pick up again. So yeah, it gets quite tricky out there photographing. I mean, there's no tripods or monopods. You've got to use your legs as your stabilization. Yeah, big, powerful. I mean, this is really one of my most powerful images. I'm right low down. There's a big westerly blowing here already. And I'm probably the only person photographing. It's basically the skipper, myself, the crew members, everybody else is sitting getting sick. When that westerly already picks up, I mean, it really throws people around. And then, of course, to stabilize yourself and get this type of shot is just, this is what you're looking for, is those big seas. It makes it more dramatic. You can see maybe a little calmer there, but just nicely with the mountains. And this nice and close up, this was taken at Gearing's Point, which is like the main viewing point in town. I mean, this photo hasn't been cropped, but it's just that preemptive, you'd know. I think I had about 15, 20 people around me, and I just shouted to all of them. I said, get your cameras ready, the whale's going to breach. Half of them look at me as if I'm speaking a different language, don't know what breach is. And then, of course, when the whale jumps, I mean, nobody gets a photograph because they're just so excited. Oh, also from the boat, I mean, it is just spectacular. Yeah, now this, one of my all-time favorites. This I took, I think, just pre-COVID. Yeah, very rarely that you get this. It's almost breaching away from me and very close to the boat as well. And with the full wingspan here, that would measure a good 10 meters from side to side. I mean, those pectoral flippers are good 2.5 meters in length, and then this huge body of about 5 meters wide. So yeah, it'll be very close on 10 meters wide. And yeah, I'll finish off. This is a very famous southern right whale named Emma. And I'll finish off with the breaching and go straight into the tails now, the flukes. I normally finish with the breaching, but the tails is, I mean, the iconic symbol. I mean, if you look at jewelry, I mean, everybody knows a whale tail, and this is ultimately what a photographer wants to photograph as well. I mean, they just really, it lends itself to power, to, I mean, just dramatic water scenes, the ocean. And this is Emma as well, beautiful colorations. She's actually, if I just go back, you can see she's got markings on her back and markings on the underside. It's a very rare form. It's called a blaze morph. It's the closest form of albinism. And as I said, her name is Emma. I'm not going to harp on too much about Emma, but Emma was first photographed in 1983 on an aerial survey. And since 1983, she's returned to our waters. And we were very blessed during COVID. We actually saw her coming into the bay with a baby as well. And speaking to the Mammal Research Institute, this is her 13th or 14th baby. And she's only lost one of those youngsters. So thanks to her, she's really built up the stock, if I could put it like that. So she's got quite a family tree with her 13 to 14 youngsters. So yeah, bless her. If she had a baby then, it was her first baby in 83, that would put her close to 50 years of age. Okay, now just these dramatic scenes taken from the shore. This is when the boats can't go out. This is probably a good 6 meter swell breaking ferociously on the rocks. This is Kwai water for the English people and our Chileans. Kwai water means angry waters, and as you can see, it is angry waters. Now, believe it or not, this was a youngster, probably only about 2 months old. I'd say even younger, probably 6 weeks to 2 months max. And all it was doing was lying very close to the rocks, but it was lying in the break. And all the waves were doing was knocking the wave over, as the whale over. As soon as the wave went through, the tail came back up. And pretty much just having fun. That's all it was doing. Okay, just a nice gentle tail. It's also, we refer to it as a fluke, and just putting the young tail onto mom's blowholes. They are very, very very good mothers. They're almost like Velcro for the first year. They spend a year with their mother. And I pretty much think their whole lives, there's a bond for life. Even though after a year, the youngster is independent and can follow its own nose. However, they would probably know each other for the remainder of their life. Yeah, so just talking dramatic scenes. There's been huge talks now in the world about these two orcas, namely Port and Starboard. I'm not going to tell you the story about them. So just remember those names, Port and Starboard. If you just Google Port and Starboard, you can then go and follow them. And this particular day, it was 2015, if I'm not mistaken, I saw Port for the first time. Starboard was around. I just didn't catch her for a photograph or him for a photograph. And this is a male southern right that was just down the drag. And I've never ever seen a whale zap its tail around like this. It was ferocious the way it slapped its tail down. And I'm sure it picked up that these two orcas were in close proximity. Now, just to give you an idea, people say, what are their enemies? Orcas, I'm sorry, it's got no chance against an adult southern right whale. I'm talking an adult in peak form, peak condition. I mean, any elderly whale, just like on land, is going to be a target for a prey, or going to be prey for an animal trying to attack it. That tail measures anything from 5 to 6 meters wide, and pretty much I think will do some serious damage to an orca. Yeah, so more sort of benign day. This is what we're looking for. Yeah, it's a bit of a washed out background with a cloud, with the skylight there, but you work your angles, you get your mountain, you go low down. I'm pretty much sitting on the boat with my feet almost in the water, I would say. But yes, you come up with these really powerful, waiting for it to break that surface. And yeah, a lot of these tails are sort of hanging on walls all over the world. So yeah, it is just, I mean, to see that, I think I was using a 1740 mm lens here. It was that close to me. It was so violent. The young tail, you can see the flappiness now. There's no rigidity in it. You can still see the tail is full of cymids, whale lice. And pretty much what is happening here, because the tail has got no bone structure, and because they grow so quickly, the whale basically grows out of its skin. So it's making way for the new skin, and these little whale lice, for the first 2 to 3 weeks of its life, are on the tail, basically just eating it away to make way for that new skin. By the time the whale gets to about 3 to 4 weeks old, by 4 weeks, they can start breaching. And of course, with that tail going up and down, pretty much those whale lice can't handle it anymore. Move right back to the head area of the whale. Okay, once again, it's just the ferocity. I mean, the power. I mean, that is just a thick curve there, big tail. That's just like a sequence there, out the water and then standing up on its, and also in shallow water. We're probably only about 10 meters of water there. Yeah, just a nice dramatic shot with Hans by. It's actually the Kelders in the background there. It's on the other side of the bay from Amanus. Yeah, now these are more those stormy days. This is what you, from a photographic point of view, this is what you're looking for. You don't want the sun. I really love the sunless days, but with those big black clouds and with the big seas. I use the word westerly all the time because that is our horrible winter wind. But I'm telling you, it's so dramatic that if we do go out in the small westerly, and we're out there and we get caught when it starts becoming a big westerly, we don't actually tell the paying guests that it might be picking up. But by that time, most of them have been sort of chundering into their bags. But for me, it's just absolutely dramatic to get some of these great shots. So yeah, you create your own luck. You make and create these shots. Yeah. Yeah, it just tells a story. I mean, look at that sky, blue, white, and black, and then a green sea. And then, of course, the beautiful, that's actually Maanskyn Kop. That's 963 meters, I think, above sea level, and it is on the sea, so it is a massive rocky protrusion. Well, it's actually a big mountain. Okay, yeah, finishing with the southern rights. I'm just going to now, this as I said earlier when I started, my talk will, it's taken me through and found a lot of other creatures, namely the Brutus whale and the the humpback whales, they also come into our bay. The Brutus whales are actually resident in our bay for the whole year. This is a Brutus whale, that is the throat grooves or pleats. It's known as the rorquals. Brutus whales are they renowned for the sardine run up the Natal coastline, which is more June, July. And very few people know about our sardine run, which runs sort of February, March, April. And this year, all I did was photograph February, March, April. I had a bay full of sardines and a bay full of Brutus whales. And it was pretty much just me photographing them because nobody else was here. I mean, it was COVID time and there was nobody else. And I got some of the most amazing footage. It's taken from land that is probably, I would say, close to a rugby field of sardines. That's how big this explosion was of sardines. There's a whale somewhere in the middle there, but of course it doesn't tell you how violent it is, but it was so close to me with the big lens. I'm shooting with a 500 and a 1.4 converter. So I'm about a good 150 meters away from this. So yes, they just come from underneath. They corral them all together. They work as a team. And then you just don't know what's going to happen. It's like this big boiling pot that just explodes. And they come from underneath with their mouths ajar and they just gobble up all these sardines. Yeah, one of my all-time special days, 24th of August, 2019, I was blessed to see these beautiful orcas, the pot of about 12 to 15, 3 big males. And yeah, that's Hermanus in the background. And you can just see what beautiful conditions we had. We spent about 25 minutes with them. Unfortunately, we had another trip. We were on a bit of a time schedule, so we unfortunately had to leave them. I think we did about a 25-minute turnaround. And because it was such a flat day, we went straight out after them again, never to be seen. It's just they were probably moving around at about 8 to 9 knots. They were really motoring, so we just never saw them again. Yeah, big male came obviously to assert himself. This is also just like terrestrial animals. You always get the male that will come and flex its muscles, very similar to us humans as well. Always got the show offs on the big muscle boys. Yeah, this is a beautiful, you can just see the difference in tails now. Very rough tails of the humpback whales. And once again, also males, they like to come up next to the boat. There's always one male that will come and give you this big tail whip. And it's also, once again, just to assert themselves. Humpbacks can be very aggressive whales. Remember I said to you during the mating rituals, southern right whales don't. There's just no aggression shown, but it's known that humpbacks can actually fight to the death when they're vying for a female. And once again, they probably as long as southern rights, that are a lot more slender, but still a very big humpy can weigh in at a good 45,000 kilograms. So it's through my photography, it's just, and my journey with them, I'm quite a, I think you picked up now, I like this dramatic, the powerful, the explosive photographic style. There always has to be water. Water is just so beautiful. Yeah, once again, you can just see our close up. I mean, they're not as predictable as southern rights. Where southern rights, you'll see they'll lift their head and you know pretty much where they're going to breach. Humpbacks just are sporadic. It's here, there. You just got to be on your toes and be ready. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, parallel with the boat. Wait for me, I will give you a show. These are the true gymnasts of the ocean. A lot more slender than the southern rights, but I'm a southern right boy. Lots of action, almost, well, they can actually get themselves completely out the water. Southern rights are just not able to. Once again, huge pectoral flippers. They measure about 5 meters in length. It's about a third of the length of the body, so up to 15 meters in length as well. So a massive, massive paddle. Yeah, lovely. You can almost see this was a pirouette. You can actually see if you look at my sort of burst of about 10 shots, you can actually, it shows you the complete pirouette. Once again, I waited and I waited and I waited for this. The skipper had to go back. I said to hell with it. The guys have paid. We're on the other side of the bay, another 10, 15 minutes. I'm waiting for the shot. It was the last glimmer of light with this huge storm brewing. And it actually did this fantastic breach for us. And it was pretty much turned, and we went back to the harbor. Okay, so that's pretty much done with everything else. I'm going to finish off now with the southern rights. And the only reason I've got this photograph in is just to show you what photographic equipment it's just on another level these days. I mean, this is still with a DSLR, but mirrorless has now taken it to another level. This is shot with a 500mm lens with a 1.4 converter. It's pretty much dark here. I've got it on ISO 4000 and probably handheld at 1/20th of a second. So yes, there's a little bit of movement there, but I think that movement just lends itself to the whole dramatic scene of this. And it's the last rays of light, the golden hour as we all know it. And yeah, I will be finishing off with the golden hour. That's how I like to do it. And yeah, these are really, this is, as a photographer now, you have to strive to better yourself. I mean, it doesn't just help taking photographs of breaching whales or tails. You've got to go out and look for the next best thing, because if you don't, you're going to get left behind. If you look at this now, what I've learned on the boat, you want to wait for the trough. So you've got to try and get the boat going into the trough. This is also about a 4-meter swell, and let the whale come up to the crest. And of course, with those mountains in the background, yeah, I couldn't have scripted this better. But once again, when you start taking over 1 million photographs, you're going to get these days, and you just have to be on the button. And you've probably got only, literally, it is split seconds to get to that level, because those waves are moving all the time. So within 10 shots a second that my camera can do, I've probably only got this one. The others are all wasted, because the wave has gone down with the whale, and it's just messed up the whole creativity side of it. Just to give you an idea of when you are photographing, it is basically seconds that you wait for the sun to come up. It's more difficult photographing sunrise and sunset, because the sun rises so quickly, whereas sunset, you've got so much more time to angle yourself, and you've got daylight as well. Whereas this particular sunrise, we go out about probably 5-6 trips in a season, where you go out, especially June, July, it is freezing cold. We leave at about 6:15 in the morning, and it is pitch black straight across the bay. And then you go and park the boat. Look, you can still see the whales. I mean, it is getting light, but you just, obviously, I do underexpose quite a lot as well, just to make it a little more dramatic. And of course, you've just got to get it just before that sun comes up. This is sundown, so probably the last trip of the afternoon, and a photographer's dream. It's not the greatest shot, but a breaching whale in the sun going down. It's just what it's all about. Once again, just using that light of the sun just on the whale's body, just making it more dramatic. And then, of course, yeah, you just wait it out. Your days will come. Some days you spend the whole day there and nothing comes. It's just, you just got to wait for it. So yeah, it's become a bit of a dedication thing. I am pretty much a whale nut. 18 years, and this is all I've been doing. But yeah, I've made it work for me, and I probably will do this. I think I've probably got a good 20 years left in me, hopefully. And this is probably all I will be doing. I think this is the last shot. Just a lovely way to say thank you to everybody. And then, yeah, just say thank you. And it has been an honor to show you my works. And I hope you folks all enjoyed it. And I think I'll hand over to Chris or to Johan. And if there are going to be any questions, please feel free to ask me, and I'll try and answer them in the best way possible. Yeah, very much.
Do you ever manage to record any sounds? You seem to get so close. Or I just wonder if you manage to record any sounds ever.
We actually started last year with a hydrophone, and my last trip on Saturday last week, we had a mating group of about 8 whales next to the boat, and we put the hydrophone in, and absolutely we were so privy to their goings on and the noises that came out of there. We've got a brilliant surround sound on the boat, and I just said to everybody, just keep quiet and just listen to this. As much as there was all the splashing, you picked up all the sounds. And yes, we will obviously use this for research purposes. We will give it to the Mammal Research Institute, the whale unit. Yeah, they are based in Hermanus as well. So yes, this is all new technology for us. And I mean, when you see that, you get 30, 40, 50 people on the boat to keep dead quiet, and then you hear the whales under the water, which is inaudible to us, but the hydrophone picks up those very low frequency sounds. It was so brilliant. So yes, we do that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mal. Just if I may add, just before we add on, Dave, at Homebrew, we've been working close with the Whale Research Group, and we had the privilege, the absolute privilege, to make them a little short film about their hydrophonic recording, and it was just absolutely incredible. It was one of those jaw-dropping moments of my life just to hear them call. It was absolutely incredible. Lovely. On that note, anyone else? Please put up your hand. Oh, Mel, there we go. You're not muted yet, so.
Are you able to tell the difference between the sounds of a humpback and a southern right and a killer orca?
Yeah, look, all the whales, dolphins all have their own dialect. They all have their own dialect. The bottlenose dolphins and the orcas and the humpback whales are probably the most studied of all. And of course, the humpback whale they are the singers of the ocean. And they have a vocabulary or song repertoire of, I think, about 40, 45. I've actually just got the latest National Geographic book, and do yourself over, go and buy that. And they've actually got the actual songs that they sing.
But can you actually tell the difference when you're sitting on the boat with your hydrophone?
No, I can't. I'm telling you now, if we've probably done 10 minutes of hydrophonic work, it's a lot. So it's not in my field of expertise. So no, I couldn't tell you.
I doubt it. Mel, you are happy with that?
Thank you. Thanks very much.
Okay, Marty, as your hand is up now, I have to give you a chance. You're the only one with your hand up. The stage is yours, Marty.
So Andrew Pedersen has been waving at you, so I'll let him talk, and then I'll ask.
Okay, wait.
Because he's from Hermanus, you see.
No, he's not
or Hoedspruit, depends on the day.
Andrew?
Yeah, except unmute.
The tiny button. Okay, can you hear me, Dave?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. Thanks. I saw my first whale, thanks to Dave, taking me out when I first moved down to Hermanus on the boat. So thanks for that. But I have now since left Hermanus, and I'm in Hoedspruit full time, which is, I do miss the scenery and the whales and the sea. Dave, the question I wanted to ask is, getting back to the orcas, are they the only predators of these whales? Are they the predators of these whales? You know, you often see some very sad pictures of, I think, grey whales, you know, with the cows trying to sort of save their calves from pods of killer whales, and it all gets a bit bloody and quite sad. Does this happen with the southern rights? You know, port and starboard, are they eating all the great whites? Are they doing the same? Do they predate on the southern rights?
As far as I know, absolutely not. No. If you look at the size of an orca, a male for that matter, probably about 9 meters in length, probably weigh less than 10 tons, which is still formidable. And then you've got a 50, 60,000 kilogram southern right whale. Yes, protecting the little one. All I can say is, with the orcas, let's say you got that family of 15 chasing down a mother and calf, and they were very hungry and very interested in that calf. I would say through chasing them down and eventually tiring them out, they probably would overpower the little one, but it's going to come at an expense. It's the same as lions trying to take out a herd of buffaloes. The buffaloes will eventually turn on them. So, and there's going to be injury. And this is what the orcas do not want to, you know, they have a lifespan of 90, 100 years. So they do not want to go and injure themselves unnecessarily. So they would stick to the sharks or the seals or, you know, under their fighting weight. But it's not impossible.
Thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah.
Marty, as you so politely gave up your chance, it's your turn now. Then I'll go to Kenneth.
Cool. Thanks very much for the talk and some amazing photography there, which I really appreciated. So thanks, Dave. Just a couple of questions, if I can. You mentioned the colostocies. I mean, I don't know how you would spell that. It's quite an interesting word. But is it almost like an open, gaping wound of raw flesh, or is it like hard, or like a scab, or is it a scar tissue, or what exactly is it?
It's almost it's a skin protrusion, hardened skin, a very rough hardened skin. When it is born with this hardened skin, and it will just harden as it gets older, and then forms the basis or the platform for the parasites to attach themselves to. Now, the parasites that I showed you were the little cymids, the whale lice. Now, included in the parasites, you also get barnacles. Now, barnacle will burrow into that hardened skin. Now, that can burrow in anything from 8 to 10 centimeters into the callosity without harming the whale at all. So it is just, you know, if you play tennis or worked in the garden, you're eventually going to get
callus.
Calluses. Yeah. So it's pretty much like a callus. It's just this hardened skin protrusion.
Okay, very interesting.
And as I said, it is the fingerprint. It is the fingerprint of the southern right whale, and that's how we identify, or that's how the research guys identify the individuals.
And then you mentioned that the fat content of the milk from the mothers is like 40 to 45%. Where do they actually get the fat from to pass it over to the I mean, is it their diet? I mean, you showed the sardines being eaten. I presume they're rich in high fat, what's it, fancy fat E or something like that. But is that where they get the fat from, or is it, because I mean, I wouldn't have thought that plankton are rich in fat.
Okay, so good question there. The sardines I showed you were gobbled up by the Brodus whale. Southern right whales do not eat fish whatsoever. So
that's what I thought.
Their staple diet is the small crustaceans, your copepods, your zooplankton, and so they are carnivorous in the true sense of the word. And through that, they will get their fat build up. So their fat, or their now I'm lost for a word here. Their blubber thickness is about 30 to 40 centimeters thick, and that is where their fat reserves are stored. So for 6 months, they've got to live off that fat reserve. So it all gets stored in the blubber, and of course that would see them through for the 6 months that they do not feed. I just use it loosely. No feeding takes place for 6 months of the year. You will get cold strands of water or currents that come in, but it's not a sustainable food source for them. But it is pretty much, it's not sustainable. So for 6 months, no feeding with a little bit of nutrients here and there. But back to your question with the milk story, yes, they will get all their milk from their fat reserves. Ken is probably going to shoot me now, but I'm telling you now, a 3 to 4 month old calf can consume anything from 400 to 600 liters per day. So, I mean, because the growth is so rapid. I don't say they drink so much milk every day, but of course, when they're small, they probably take in 10, 12, 15, 20 liters at a time. But the real big 4 or 5 month old calves can still suck mommy completely dry. So when mom leaves our shores, she's probably lost about, I'd say, 40, 45% of her weight. I mean, it's incredible how thin they are when they leave here. And she's worked it out over the years that she's got enough energy left to take that calf back to the feeding grounds, because she has to. If she doesn't, then, I mean, she's going to die and the calf will die. So it's a big balancing act, and that's the only reason why they have one calf. If I could just
no, thanks.
Marty, a couple of stew.
Okay, I'll wait till the end then. See who else puts up their hand. No problem.
We're going to give another chance, then you come back on. Don't go away, Marty.
I never go away.
Kenneth, the screen is yours when you accept unmute. There we go.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Can you hear me there?
Yes, we can. Loud and clear.
Dave, I'm not going to shoot you. We've had that argument too many times. I just want to thank you for a lovely presentation. Beautiful photographs as ever. And when you're coming this part of the world, we've got a lot of humpbacks this part of the world nowadays. But thank you all the same.
Okay, yeah, Ken, lovely seeing you. sitting in Jakobsbaai, just to put all the viewers that can hear us now. Ken was probably he was my first mentor. I got a lot of information from Ken. A real doyen in the whale world, Ken Whaleman Moore. And Ken also guided, and his love and passion for the whales, and even his photographs are absolutely second to none. And look, you and I can sit around the same table and speak the same language, and we're probably still going to do it in the next couple of years. So thanks, Ken, and your beard is looking good, but.
Ruan, I'm just jumping quickly before we allow Marty another couple of questions. I just quickly jump to the chat. Not sure if Cleve Robinson is still in. Do you know why they breach more in windy, rough days?
Oh, is that the question?
Yes. That's the question, yeah.
Okay. I would say you're probably right, but it is such a small percentage. When that westerly, I use the word westerly again, that westerly starts picking up, it almost like excites them. They almost like wait for that wind and maybe just use the swell to lift them out. I haven't actually looked or thought about it in that sense, because they pretty much breach in any conditions at any time. There's no set formula. But if we have to push, I would say a very small percentage that, yes, when the the wind is up, they probably will be a little more active and playful. But, when you're underwater, you don't feel you're underwater whether it's calm or big seas, you are underwater. It's all the same underwater. But yeah, I'm sure they pick up that there is a bit of action and they can use the wave to sort of help launch them, especially with the little ones. The little ones love using the big swell to launch them out of the water. So it helps them, especially the youngsters that aren't quite so proficient in breaching.
Thanks, Dave. One more question here. Johan, maybe you could help with the chat. So there's this question. Akami Bolkeman, how do I book a trip with you, Dave?
Please. I would gladly, you can give my phone number, just get hold of me.
Johan can put it in the chat. And
Chris, I've put his details in the chat, his website and his email address and his contact number.
Wow, you also booked a trip, Maret. Thank you.
Yes, I'm booked long time now.
From the first slide. Okay, Ruan, over to you, please.
If there are I can't, and apologies if I can't see you immediately. I'm scrolling through the 3 pages that I have in front of me. No one's hand is up, no one's waving at me. So maybe we can go to the chat section. I'll start it off. There's a fun one from Andy Cleek. Andy has left us already, all the way from England. But maybe I'll WhatsApp him. Sea kelp, skincare for whales, with a question mark. There were some beautiful pictures that you had, or photographs rather.
Thank you very much. And funny enough, that very kelp is used in skincare products and in pharmaceuticals. I mean, we've got a company, a BEE company, that go out almost every day, and they go and load up all the kelp, and yes, that gets used in the pharmaceutical and in the cosmetic world. But for the whales, it's a free cosmetic, and yes, they definitely get a good massage out of that.
Lovely, thank you very much. Then we asked that one already.
Ron, there's a question.
Sorry. You can go on, Johan.
How do the whales fare with all the sharks in the area?
Absolutely no problem. They all share the ocean together. Believe it or not, Walker Bay has got 60 plus, I think it's 61 to be exact, known species of sharks in the bay. Just to give you an idea, the biggest great white, you're very, very lucky if you're going to find a 5-meter great white out there. And when the baby is born, the baby's already 5 to 6 meters in length. So once again, stick to your knitting. Never bring a knife to a gunfight.
Lovely. And then one from, I think it's Llewellyn Taylor. Yes, it is. He had to leave as well, but it might be of interest to the other, the rest of the 48 participants. I had a question on the impact of microplastics on feeding, digestion, assimilation, and health of the southern right whale. Any ideas on that?
Yeah, that is probably the biggest concern. Not my field of expertise, but the little bit that I have looked into it. What were those little noodles? Those little noodles that were just getting washed up on the
yes.
Yeah, noodles. And I do believe that they are being ingested because they are so they mimic the food source of the whales. And it's not just southern right whales, it's all whales and it's all fish. And look, I think every animal that has been washed up, I'm talking more cetacea now, your whales, dolphins, and porpoises, you know, when they do go for autopsies or necropsies, that you find lots of plastics. I just had a turtle, a loggerhead, that I helped take up to the Two Oceans Aquarium, and yes, it was full of plastic. So unfortunately, yeah, it's just part of as beautiful as the sea would look on the surface, it's what happens underneath, because you've got the currents. So what gets thrown in the ocean in Japan will probably end up in Hermanus or in the Pacific. There's no real, you know, you don't throw a KFC packet into the water here and it's only Hermanus that's going to be full of plastic. It gets taken all over the oceans, all over the world. So yes, it is an ongoing problem and it just needs to be managed. And I think there are lots of good people and lots of good that is being done along the plastics.
And if you, I'm going to do a little bit of a thing. If you are in Cape Town and you live here or anywhere along the coastline, you can go and visit an organization called the Beach Co-op, and they arrange massive beach cleanups all across the country. At full moon, at every possible and conceivable date and weekend, they do incredible work. And it's not only a beach cleanup, they use the information gathered at each of these for scientific research that is done via the University of Cape Town and the Fitzpatrick Institution of Ornithology. So go and give them a look, the Beach Co-op. They're really good, cool guys. A question from
thanks for that information. There's one more question in the chat asking, when do you give Marty opportunity to ask his third question?
Where is more? Yeah, there's more. Cool, Marty. I have one more question in the chat, so I can do that and then give you time to compose.
Fine. I've learned to write my questions down.
Oh, lovely. So, Marty, the screen is yours, and then maybe Chris, we can.
I'll ask it. Ask you one. It's fine.
Yeah, cool. Okay, cool. There's one in the chat, one last one in the chat for now, from Lynn Keith. Would like to know the area the southern right whale covers along the South African coast. It's a big question. It's a big area.
Interesting question that. If you go back to their former numbers, which I'm working on what the scientific evidence is, there were between 55 and 75,000 southern right whales along the southern oceans. And if you look at the whaling station stats, they have been recorded as far up as Mozambique. And then on the west coast, there were even whaling stations as far up right up to Gabon, which is just shy of the equator. We are starting to see mass migrations. When I say mass migrations, numbers, because the numbers are increasing. We're getting them going as far as Namibia. And yeah, up to PE is sort of almost commonplace, but it then starts waning off as the ocean current gets warmer and warmer. So you might see one or two at Durban, but that's more the old story. You know, the grass is always green on the other side. You're going to get the southern right whales that also push for that, but they don't particularly like the warmer waters.
Marty? Cool. Thank you very much.
So yeah, those photographs of the coloration differences were actually quite amazing. I mean, I've never seen, I mean, it almost looked like a Dalmatian. And I was wondering, is it genetic from one to the next, or how does that whole coloration thing work? Some were like almost pitch black. Is it subspecies, or is it all the same, just genetic, like hair color or eye color?
Well, it's just genetics, skin coloration, pigmentation. You've got your X and Y chromosomes. So yes, a little bit less of that. not my field of expertise at all. You get your brindles, which, as I say, majority are white at birth, and the majority are male. And then you get your blaze morphs. That'll be white markings on the back. They can both be male and female. Then you get a coloration where they got what we call the sort of a double V, where you get white markings at birth, and those are all females. So when you're out in the field, when especially the guide, I look at Ken there as well now, he'll point out and say that's a female. And then people say, well, how do you know? And it's just through those colorations and your experience that you know which are which. But a whale pretty much coming on the surface towards you is, yeah, you just can't tell the difference between male and female unless they are inverted.
Okay. And then the last one, you said in the census there were about 500 whales, and I mean, you just mentioned figures there in the thousands, so it's actually quite amazing. Are there inbreeding problems with only there being 500 and that are left? Are there problems with inbreeding?
Yeah, so once again, very interesting question. If you look at the cousin, the northern right whale, their numbers are below 400 at the moment, with I think 60 or 63, don't quote me now, 60 to 65 actual females that are adults that can have calves. And they say that is the actual critical break off, that it's going to become extinct. I think the northern right whale is the first whale species, or the next whale species to become extinct, because it is, I think they've reached the end now. There is just not enough stock because then it becomes the inbreeding, and there's just not enough females to bring it up. The reason their numbers haven't kicked back at all, and it's been over the last 100 years, they've struggled to get over 500, and they keep on coming down, and then it's because their migration route is down the east coast of the United States of America, and their calving grounds are off the coast, the northern Floridas, where the Carolinas and the Georgias meet. That is, now you can imagine, that's transatlantic shipping lanes, and then all the up and down, sort of north to south, south to north, all their pleasure boats, their big ocean liners, their tourist vessels. So they basically got their backs against the wall. And of course, then you got your fishing vessels as well. So the entanglements, the ship strikes, and then sound pollution. That is another, you pretty much got your back to the wall. Sound travels 4 times faster in water. So the poor northern right whales, I'm sorry to say, I don't want to say it, but I think their backs are to the wall as well. I mean, it's pretty much, there's no U-turn now.
Rowan, Ken, Cheryl?
Yeah, related question from Cheryl in the chat. Does tourism have any effect on the breeding, feeding boats and oil spills in our waters? Look, I'm going to say this now. Look, I work on a whaling boat. We're the only boat in the harbour or in the bay at the moment. Any human boat or interference is going to have some sort of effect. I mean, I'm just calling it as it is. We run under government, strict government restrictions. And, even with 3 boats out there, I think there's a 4th one from the other side. I mean, compared to the rest of the world, I actually had a whale aficionado came along where she was checking to see that it was all done sort of above board. And they had to stop some of the operations in Canada off the west coast. There were like 100 whales, 100 boats around a pod of orcas. And they've actually now curbed that. I think they did away with, I think, 80% of the licenses, because it was just not conducive to the growth of the whales. It was harassing them. And it just becomes, you get your rogue whalers as well. When I say your operators, they just want to, it's bang for the buck, go in, go out. But no, it's done sustainably. Everybody that works on the boat, we're in this business to showcase it. I mean, I'm not doing it for the bucks. I'm doing it for the sheer love of it, and to show people, because that's how we want to get the message across. And the more, even through those boats, the more information we can get out there, the better for the actual survival of the species.
Yeah, sorry, Dave. I was just worried about 2 Decembers ago, I went to Seal Island, and as the boat was breaking the waves, we were covered in diesel and oil, and I just thought, yes, that's a huge impact. And I just thought, no, it just went through my mind. But no, thanks for answering it.
Yeah, if I just...
Oh, sorry, no.
Dave? Yeah, you showed a bit of the southern right whale's male appendage there, but you didn't go much further on that. I believe there's some interesting about their size of their testes and that type of thing that I'm sure people would be very interested in.
Thanks. I saw some comments in the chat earlier. Wow. So go for it, Dave.
And while I was talking about that, you were probably pouring yourself another brandy, so you missed on that. Yes, if those didn't hear it, yes. I mean, the whale penis, 3 meters in length, and the testicles combined weight up to 1,000 kilograms. I mean, it is just massive. So it's all about, as I mentioned earlier, it's all about the sperm competition, and the male with the most vigorous semen will ultimately impregnate the female. And if you've got 1,000 kilogram testicles, I mean, you are producing copious amounts of semen. So yes, that is how you will get the alpha male, as far as I'm concerned. The most well hung is the one that's going to.
But is it visible, Dave?
Is it visible?
Go into more detail. Where is it? What does it look like? It's not outside. The testes don't hang on the outside like on other animals.
No, the testes are all internal. The penis as well. I mean, it's all streamlined. Both the male and female have a genital cavity. If you want to go into specifics now, the anus sits just below the female's cavity and a lot further back from the cavity in the male. And then on either side of the female's cavity, she has 2 little cavities. I'm talking the size of about maybe 10, 12 centimeters. And in those little cavities, just either side of the genital cavity, are 2 little mammary glands, and that would then obviously squirt out the milk into the little one's mouth, hopefully. I hope you answered your question there, Ken.
Thank you.
If you want to give us.
If I, thank you very much, and Dave. Cheryl, I just want to add to that, your question, and just add a bit to Dave's as well. From a filming company's perspective, when we want to film whales, those permits are incredibly hard to come by, and it's a lot of paperwork and an incredible amount of rules and regulations that we have to follow. This is South Africa, and it's really they make it harder every single year to do this. And every single year, I have to apply for the same permits. You're not allowed to get closer. Dave, I'm talking under correction now, but I think it's 50 meters that you're not allowed to go close to them, and unless they come to you, that is. But it's very well regulated. And it's easy, and it's not easy at all to get the permits from a filming perspective. Dave, you know John well. I've worked with him for very many years, but yeah, it's very well regulated for South Africa, that is. And just another interesting fact, we were talking about size that matters, but in my previous life, I was a aquatic parasitologist. That was my thesis, was on fish. But the largest ectoparasite in the world, but you get outside, is that of the blue whale. It's a copepod, almost 4 meters in length if you study them. There's not a lot of examples of them, but not everything about whales are massive, absolutely enormous. Cool. Any other questions, ladies and gentlemen? Chris, is there anyone you that saw that? Let's see what type of.
I didn't see any hands raised. I can see that Sibyl Rietmüller is gradually becoming a little bit tired there, Sibyl. Nearly bedtime in Germany, Sibyl. Brad Nelson. I see Brad's hand is up. I just wanted to click on mute and then he disappeared. Catch Brad, Paul, then we have Paul, and then we have Safina.
Yes, Paul, I'm going to unmute you. There we go.
And then I look for Brad. Yeah, Paul, you have to accept unmute.
All right. Hi. Yeah, look, I haven't got a question. I've just got a, Dave, I was fortunate enough, well, unfortunate to get stuck in Hermanus for 9 months with a COVID lockdown. There are worse places to be, but I was fortunate enough to bump into Dave literally on the rocks taking pictures. I was also taking some pictures. Subsequent to that, I spent, fortunately, quite a lot of time with Dave, and it was most interesting. So I can recommend anybody that can get there and get acquainted with Dave and his activities. It will be a good time, but put on your mountain climbing shoes because he bounces over those rocks like a billy goat. You might battle to keep up with him sometimes. But you're most interesting, and Dave, thanks very much for the 9 months that I spent there and the time that I had with you. And yeah, I hope the rest of you, or some of you at least, get the opportunity to do the same. Thanks.
Oh, Paul, yeah, nice to see you. Thanks for joining in as well. And yeah, we do miss you this side.
Thanks, Dave.
Brilliant.
Safina?
Here we go.
Hi there. I wanted to ask the man in the pinkish shirt what kind of issues you had when you were applying for filming.
So, Safina, thank you. And I think Dave can answer as well. It's a lot of paperwork. You need to explain exactly what you need to do and why you want to do it, which species you want to film. You have to be specific about that. You can't just, there's no blanket permit anymore for, yes, I want to film anything in the harbor. So you have to be very specific about that. You need to be specific about the type of boat you're going to use, whether or not you are going to only film above water or below it as well, if you have a diving team. If your skipper, like Dave and the companies that he uses, has permits as well to film marine wildlife within any given marine protected area in South Africa. And then, of course, like when you film any wildlife, be it lions in the Kruger National Park or gorillas in Odzala, it's a waiting game. You have to see and wait what happens. And then more commonly, and Dave will attest to this, that when anything happens, usually something a few years ago, there was a massive group of whales just outside of Cape Town. And then you don't necessarily have the permit for that particular moment in time. So you plan these trips and then you hope for the best to go out. But it's a rigorous, it's paperwork, a lot of paperwork and very specific detail that you have to give nowadays. When I started off, it wasn't that difficult, but now they are quite heavy on the detail. But that's okay. That's all it's about, yeah.
So you can't just rock up with your GoPro and your drone, no?
No. Well, it all depends. I mean, what you use the footage for. The legislation is quite clear on that. If I make any money with it, then I need the permits. If I don't, and it's very difficult to prove. But as I work for a registered filming company, and we are known for making wildlife films, it's very stupid to just rock up with your GoPro and try to use the footage. There actually are people that do spot checks every now and again at the various channels, and they do ask if they, just to give an example, we filmed for National Geographic the other day, and they did ask for the necessary permits before they make payment. So you have to be, all of the big channels all over the world are very strict about these things. You can't just rock up and make a full-length documentary about whales in Hermanus and get away with it. Not anymore.
Can I have your website, please?
Yes, I'll put it in the chat section.
Okay, thank you. Thanks.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Safina. Ladies and gentlemen, I remind you of the launch for Share Screen Africa next week. Our rule is that once we are down to one screen, and then we say goodbye. I just want to check if there's anybody else who would like to ask a question. Sabil Rietmiller, I think you should say goodnight now and go to bed. I saw you yawning twice, so Sabil is she is the owner of Chumbe Island in Zanzibar, and she, I'm sure she loved this discussion with your knowledge also of the oceans, and Thank you, Sabine. Lovely to have you on. Hello, Linkmeyer. Good to see you. Isolda, good to see you. Just want to check if there's anybody want to raise a question. Gerard Wingate, would you like to raise a question? You were all good. You were listening so attentively. I thought maybe there's a question on the tip of your tongue before Marty is going to take it away from you. All good.
Everyone's
hello, Gerald from me
at the moment. Sorry, Rod.
Everyone, Kathy
saying hello, Gerald. Gerald is one of those guys who worked for the Sea Fisheries Institute who used to give you a hard time with your permits, I'm sure.
Now I know, Gerald, it was you.
There's the problem. You're unmuted, Gerard. You can defend yourself.
I think the least I say is probably the best, so I'll leave it there.
Oh, lovely. Yeah, but
good to see you, Gerald.
Yeah, Rod, it's been many, many years.
Yeah, Rod knows the world, that's for sure. Hey, Roddy.
Yeah, yeah, we go away there.
Kathy Drummond is asking, do the baleen whales have frilled tongues like the toothed whales?
Good question.
Dave, did you catch the question there?
Yeah, I caught the question. Yeah, maybe need a little more info on the word frilled tongues. I'm going to just answer the question right now, the way I understand it. All I know is the baleen whales, when they are youngsters, the outer perimeter of the tongue has a sort of, well, like a frill, sort of loose pieces of tongue. So almost like a pillow that you would put on your couch with frilly bits on the end. And that obviously aids in sucking, because their mouth construction is so weird that they're not like a cat or a dog that can just latch on. But that tongue, if they can stick it out with that frilly bit, will probably improve their actual suction capabilities. So if that is the word frilled, then if I don't know, I will find out. But that's only
that is it's just that with the toothed whales, so animals like your dolphins and stuff, they've got that loose extra on their tongues, which helps their tongues almost form a straw, which allows them then to take up the milk without taking in seawater.
Yeah, that is exactly it. But with the southern right whales, obviously being baleen whales, they do have 5 to 7 centimeters of baleen stubbles already. So let's just say, and it probably does happen more often than not, that when mommy squirts the milk out and misses the baby, especially in the real younger, the first couple of weeks, that little baby can still then latch on, because it's almost like a solid, that milk, and then they can still process it and work the water through the baleen plates, but probably still suck down a lot of water in the process. But yeah, they probably can work it out, and they will use those frilly bits to create a suction. I've never ever seen it before, but I do have a photograph, and I do believe, and if Ken is still listening, that I am the only person that has got a photograph of a young whale sticking its tongue out and with all the frilly bits. And it's actually in my book as well. It's absolutely incredible to see. And of course, as it gets older, those frilly bits will just then sort of merge into the tongue proper. Yeah, thanks for the question.